Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you here today. If you will, again, I ask you to like, share, comment on the post. And then if you would like, you can join me in the book of Philippians, chapter 2, starting in verse number 12. Paul writes there, "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure." So, first thing we need to notice is that this verse begins with the word therefore. And as I've told you before, anytime we see that word, therefore, we need to find out what it's there for. It tells us it's connected and related to what was just said. What has been said, if you remember, Paul's been talking about Christ and his character and his nature, that he is the Lord of all. And now he's going to say, therefore, because of that, here is how we should live, how we should act. And these are some extremely important words for us. It's an important passage dealing with our walk and our growth as believers. Paul says in this passage, he says that you be obedient even more now than ever. And just because I'm not there, you continue to be obedient and follow the leadership of God. As somebody has said, character is what we are in the dark when nobody's looking. Paul says, because I'm not there, doesn't mean you lower your standards. You continue to live a godly life. I remember many years ago, actually 50 years ago, still sticks in my head. I remember my teacher telling the class that she was going to be out the next day and that we would have a substitute. And I remember her words. She says, "I want you to behave better for the substitute than you would for me." Paul is saying something similar to that. He's saying, just because I'm not there, you shouldn't back down on your Christian stance. We always should continue to serve Him no matter the circumstances. And then he says something that often gets misquoted or at least misunderstood. He says, in that time, you work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. To understand that passage, we've got to make sure we don't mispronounce it or misread it. It doesn't say work for your salvation, but it says work out your salvation. We know that salvation is a free gift of God. That salvation is of grace. What Paul is saying then is what we do with our salvation once we have been given salvation, how we allow it to develop and grow in us, how we mature in our faith. In other words, the believer should always be moving forward, should always be growing deeper in their walk with the Lord. Their relationship should be growing. And so he says you're working, another way of putting it might be work on your salvation, to develop that salvation, because it's God, he says, who works in you. We develop our own salvation with fear and trembling. We're taking our salvation seriously because it is God who is working in us, because God is working to develop us into something that is for His good pleasure. Reminds me, as I've mentioned this before, it's just, again, it's a little child song that's been around for ages. He's still working on me. Paul is saying to the Philippian church, let God work in you. You continue to allow Him not just to save you, but then to develop you, that you grow in your relationship, you grow in your walk with Him, your understanding of Him, your understanding of His Word, your prayer life, your witnessing, your sharing the gospel. Again, all those things, that we work on those things, and we work out those things, that we continue to develop in our Christian walk with Jesus Christ. So think about that today. Let's work out our salvation. All right, have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.